fight alone will make us rich beyond our wildest dreams.
We are Justice and the Disenfranchised Podcast, that podcast all about those franchises of one, those films that fancy themselves full-fledged franchises before falling flat on their face after the first film. I'm your host, Stephen Foxworthy, and joining me, as always, the fan without mirror or something like that, it's Tucker. Hey, Tucker.
Hi, it's me, Tucker. Hi, it's Steven. How's it going?
It goes. How are you?
Yeah? I'm good.
Good.
I'm good.
Good. I know.
That's all I got to say.
I think I know why you're good, and it's because you may be good. We'll give you that. But this guy, he's magic. From the Spectre Cinema Club, from the Tainted Love podcast, from the Pod the Pendulum. Please welcome back our very good friend, Mr. DeVaughn Taylor. DeVaughn, welcome back.
Hello. Hey, when you cry, I'll wipe away all your tears. If you scream, I'll fight away all your fears. I will. I'll do that for you.
And that's why we love having you around, quite frankly.
I'm doing great. I'm excited. This is the third installment of my series of coming on for alternative superhero movies, and this is a big one. Whenever I'm podcasting about something real serious, I have to have 3 drinks, and I got my hot tea, I got my water, and I got a Coca-Cola on the side too. So it's a serious business.
Dang.
It's a 3-drinker.
Yeah.
It's a 3-drinker.
This is how we know you came not just to party, but to party down. And of course, because we've been talking about American comic book superheroes the last few weeks, and of course, we've got Daredevil Born Again dropping on Disney Plus later this week as well. So, of course, we're talking about the 2003 Mark Steven Johnson film Daredevil. Written by Mark Steven Johnson and starring, let's run down the list here. Ben Affleck, Jennifer Garner, Michael Clark Duncan, Colin Farrell, Jon Favreau, Joey Pantoliano, David Keith, not to be confused with Keith David, Leland Orser, Eric Avari, Ellen Pompeo, Derek O'Connor, with cameos from Stan Lee, Frank Miller, Kevin Smith, Paul Ben Victor, Mark Margolis, Kane Hodder's in this bitch.
Yes.
And if you watch the director's cut, like all of us did,
Coolio.
Oh, a lot more Coolio. A lot more featured Coolio in the director's cut.
That's true.
Well, he's not even in the theatrical. He's not even there.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, how 2003 this cast for sure. It's kind of crazy, where certain people were in their careers. I had totally forgot Joey Pants was in this for some reason. I was like, oh yeah, it's my guy.
Yeah,
and he's in one of those hats, similar to Tucker's hat right now.
It's a Ben Urich hat though. I feel like that's just a Ben Urich hat.
And he wears his backwards.
Canonically,
of course. What a cast, and dare I say, this is a very important movie. As far as in the history of modern comic book movies, like we were just figuring it out, and then this was one of the movies that's like, okay, we're trying a lot here, and there's some stumbles, and so like this also is like kind of was an early of one of the, hey, these are some of the things not to do in your comic book movie, which I think is equally as important as movies that are a good template, because up to this point we had Spider-Man, we had X-Men, we had Blade, so it's like we got it down, and this movie's kind of trying to do a little bit of all of them. But then this is kind of an example, it's like, hey, okay, if you're going forward, you're gonna make a comic book movie, here's some things to avoid. I think if this movie didn't exist, I don't know if the Dark Knight trilogy would be as good as it is. I think Nolan saw that and he took some notes.
I believe it, honestly.
Hey, isn't the kid, the main bully, isn't that the kid from The Soprano?
Yep, that is AJ from the Robert Eiler.
Those cast members in this.
I'm
assuming did the director direct some episodes of Sopranos? Because there's a lot of Sopranos cast members, at least 3 people that have been featured on Sopranos.
Also, while you're looking, Stephen, I would like to mention, you briefly mentioned David Keith. And not only is he the exact opposite of Keith David in every single way,
Correct.
but he's also in one of my favorite why the fuck does he like that movie movies, Officer and a Gentleman. Why the fuck do I like that movie? I don't know. Explain to me why I like Greek. I have no idea, but I love it. And David Keith is in it. He's also in the 2003 TV pilot remake of Carrie. He's the detective.
Oh, okay.
David Keith is. Yeah.
I watched that movie last year.
Yeah.
Here's the thing
did.
I will tell you with regard to Mark Steven Johnson's history with The Sopranos. He has directed no television in his career.
Oh.
Interesting.
His
Yeah,
only movie before this one is Simon Birch.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, random.
Jim Carrey's in that, in the wraparound.
Correct.
I love how they go, yes, that's the guy who we're going to get to do Daredevil.
And then 4 years later, when the Daredevil sequel doesn't materialize, he does the Nick Cage Ghost Rider film.
On the first one, too. Not the good one, either.
I like the first one. It's not great, but I like it still.
There are things I like about the first one, but once the second one came out, I did not like those things anymore because the second one, I think, is so much... It's not a better film, but it's a much better Ghost Rider film, I think, that second one is.
His directing career is... this is the high point of his directing career, and it kind of is all downhill from here. Simon Birch, Daredevil, Ghost Rider, the Josh Duhamel, what's her name? It's the Kristen Bell rom-com When in Rome, Killing Season, something called Finding Steve McQueen, and then he switches.
The director?
I don't think so.
The modern director, or
based on the poster alone
from Bullet?
I'm guessing the guy from Bullet.
Gotcha. Okay, they're both rad.
They are both rad.
So different
in very different ways.
In just like Keith David and David Keith.
And
that guy should be McQueen Steve.
He's in the Netflix rom-com realm now.
Yeah, I was gonna say he pivots hard there.
Doing, yeah.
The Rachel Lee Cook, is that Rachel Lee Cook film Love Guaranteed? Yes, that is Rachel Lee Cook with Damon Wayans Jr. And then Love in the Villa is his most recent film from 2022.
Nice, sure.
Yeah.
Oh yes, classic.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, that's his entire directorial career, from Simon Birch to Love in the Villa. Mark Steven Johnson, everybody, give it up.
Yay!
Sure. So DeVaughn, you picked this one. You went out of your way to put your stamp down on Daredevil and say, hell yeah, fuck yeah, Daredevil. Why Daredevil? I'm curious to ask why this movie. What's your history here?
You know, I mean, again, like, I guess I'm just extra nostalgic about these, like, kind of early 2000s superhero movies, because, like, I like my care for, like, the MCU and any like kind of superhero movie stuff now is just kind of gone, and that's sad. You know, there's a Black Captain America movie in Black History Month, and I don't care. That's sad.
That is,
you know, that's the state of, you know, kind of like, it sucks because I love these things. So it's like, I don't know. I guess I feel just like, you know, so I can go back, you know, I watch this and I'm like, yo, like, I know a lot of people like to shit on this movie, but like, this is still better than at least, you know, a third of, you know, like kind of the MCU and like kind of a lot of stuff. And I'll say, like, the closest thing we have now is like the Sony Venomverse. Those movies feel like 2003 Daredevil in a kind of funny way. There's some kind of charm to it, but I don't know. You know, it's like, I know I think a lot of people are hard on this because, you know, Daredevil's such a beloved character, and like kind of, you know, stepping up to like do this so early on in the kind of modern superhero boom was a lot of pressure, and you know, I think it just you know, didn't deliver, whether it didn't deliver you know, enough action for people, or whether it didn't you know, stay true to the source materials in the comics. But, you know, I watch it, and I've always been a defender that I'm like, you know, this is a hot mess. You know, like there is flaws all over the place for sure, but there's a lot of stuff that I like, and I've always also been in the camp that's like, you know, you're doing an adaptation, so like, I'm not a stickler for comic stuff. Like, as long as you're capturing the spirit, that's good enough for me. So I know, especially now looking back, because we have the series, and that is obviously that superior, kind of adaptation of the character. This still presents the character in a very interesting fashion. And again, like they really merged Batman and Spider-Man and made this movie. That's like basically what they're trying to do, like hardcore,
Right.
and like that's a very ambitious of you. And so it's like, did some stuff work? No, but like this is also like an interesting early period for special effects too, like whenever we're kind of getting some stuff. So it's interesting how, like, this had like kind of cutting edge technology in this movie for the time, again. So like I think that this movie still has a very like important stamp on the modern superhero movie. And it's like, I get people's complaints, I totally do, like, this isn't your Daredevil, I get it, but like at the same time, like, hey, it's an adaptation, and I don't know, I dig it for what it is.
When did you first see it?
Oh, definitely. When I definitely saw us in theaters for sure. This would have been like a dad pick me up after school. We go to the movies, catch the matinee,
Hell yeah.
and so yeah, definitely saw it in theaters. Watched it a lot on DVD. So it was very nice to. I had to go rent a copy for the director's cut. And so I had the physical, I had the they even keep the same like menu that was on the DVD on the Blu-ray. It's like still the
Nice.
same menu, and it's just like this like it's like it's a very aggressive title menu, but in the best way. And the titles are written in Braille, but Braille is a felt thing, so that's kind
Yeah.
of weird. But again, that's kind of an encapsulation of this movie, is why are they putting the DVD menu in Braille for you not to be able to feel through the TV?
100%.
Silly stuff.
Because what one thing that I don't it's not a complaint for me, it's just something I noticed, is that the blindness in this movie is in name only, because even though they try to, show that he has his money and different things and everything, but when he's out interacting with people, he acts like a sighted person.
Yeah.
And no one fucking bats an eye
No.
at all. So
Except
they're like, well, who's this?
She's like, are you sure you're blind?
Yeah.
That's me the whole movie. I'm like, are you sure you're blind? Because
And everyone should be asking that after the playground sequence, quite frankly, if not sooner. Good Lord.
man, wow.
So many choices in
Yeah.
this movie. So many
Yeah. Oh,
choices.
big choices. Big choices. Tucker, what's your history with Daredevil, the character, Daredevil, the movie? What take us back.
Well, I was a comic book kid from the time I was in middle school until, well, now, but sometimes more or less than others. But I've always been a fan of Daredevil, not enough to like really buy the issues, but I've read some of the trades. I'm familiar with the character. I did see this at the movie theater when it came out, and it was kind of a Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 experience for me, where I saw it at the theater, and I was like, I don't like this, but I can't stop thinking about it. So just like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, when that director's cut came out, I didn't even hesitate to rent it. I just bought it.
Okay.
Because I knew every movie that I see like that, where I don't like it, but I can't stop thinking about it, just buy the director's cut. And it's fantastic. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 makes no sense.
Okay.
The theatrical version makes no sense without the context from the director's cut. And there's a lot of things, I think, with this movie, the director's cut makes the theatrical cut both better and worse. Because if you've seen the director's cut, you have context that is missing from the theatrical cut. So even though you don't see it in the theatrical cut, you have that context. So some things make a little more sense. But at the same time, there's some dumbass shit in the theatrical cut that does not need to be there, that thankfully the director's cut gets rid of. The CGI, I will say, normally I would hate this CGI because of how bad it is, but I kind of think it fits the tone of the film, how rubbery it is. Like in Blade 2, I don't like Blade 2 because it's boring, but like the CGI is the same in Blade 2 as it is here. It's rubber. It's little rubber men. And in Blade 2, I can't stand it. It takes me out of the movie, and it ruins a movie that I already do not fucking like. But in this movie, it kind of enhances it. Especially the slow-mo when he kicks Bullseye off the bike. And let me tell you, Bullseye is having a great time. Colin Farrell is... oh, man. He is this fucking movie, dude. Say. Oh, my gosh. He's using every muscle of his acting brain is being used. He's putting everything on the screen in this movie, and it is fantastic. He chews up every piece of scenery in sight. I love that man. He could do anything. He's
incredible.
Yeah.
He could do anything.
Hands down.
Movie, golly, he's fantastic. He's just insane. Completely insane, but not like you can take that too far, or you could take it too far in one direction. But boy, I think he really understood the assignment, and he gets the Spirit Award for this movie.
Okay.
Yeah, for me.
We don't normally hand those out. I think this is the first Tucker Spirit Award that we've handed out.
He's a big VIP. I like everybody in this movie, whether they're trying or not. I think it all works. But boy, Colin Farrell, boy.
No, Colin Farrell.
That man, you get what you pay for. You should tip him. If he's ever in your movie, you should just tip him like 20%, honestly.
20% of the gross, Colin Farrell in the back end. Absolutely.
Just
yes.
In the memo, it's like, just watch Daredevil. This is for you. Just like, thanks.
Yeah, what's Colin Farrell's Venmo? We should all just Venmo him $20.
Yeah.
Not that he needs it or anything, but he could get a couple glasses of whiskey for 20.
It's the principle.
It is. If you really like hard press me to try to remember what my first comic book was, it might be a Daredevil book, actually.
Nice.
It was a one shot called Daredevil versus Vapora. I literally Googled it and found it because I did not remember what it was called. I remember the villain's name was Vapora, and fortunately, that was the key piece of information. It was like a fire safety PSA comic book.
Right.
And like they handed it out in my classroom at school.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. And on the front, it's got this little kid reaching for a can of gasoline while Daredevil chokes on the vapors. And the vapors are the form of an evil seductress woman named Vapora. I don't remember anything about the story, but like, yeah, he fights gasoline fumes. That's the villain, is sentient gasoline fumes, which, I mean, chef's kiss, no notes. And
what, did they just not want kids to go to gas stations? And they're like, look, gasoline, it kills Daredevil.
It's like I'm pretty sure there's more to it in the comic, but here, let me put the.
That's just so funny.
I'm gonna drop this in the notes here so you guys can see this cover. But yeah, it's like, yeah, Daredevil teaches kids about fire safety by fighting sentient fumes. That's it. And like as I got older, I read the Guardian Devil storyline, the Marvel Knights story that Kevin Smith wrote. And I read some of the Bendis run, and then I bought all the Frank Miller trade paperbacks. And so I kind of went in on Daredevil, but again, like the two of you, absolutely saw this in theaters. Was in college at the time. A bunch of my comic book buddies and I all got together and went out and saw this one on last Saturday and had a lot of fun with it. Really kind of all left going, Colin Farrell. Like that was kind of our big takeaway here. And I always also stood up for Michael Clark Duncan as the Kingpin. I thought he was really, really phenomenal in that role. I really liked him in that role. Was bummed when he died. And then when I heard Vincent D'Onofrio was taking over the role, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then I saw Vincent D'Onofrio do the role, and I was like, okay.
That's there are so many things that I like about the director's cut better, but the fact that we get more Michael Clark Duncan and possibly the most unhinged Michael Clark Duncan Kingpin moment in the director's cut.
Oh, yes.
When he kills those bodyguards, when he's just straight up, he turns into like an ethereal something and just screams in that guy's face.
And just like
snaps his neck with one hand, like amazing.
He's not human when he does that. He's like some sort of scary, like ancient creature. Like, where does that come from? Where do you pull from to do that? Like,
I love how there's a lot
fantastic.
of extra unhinged material added in from the director's cut, because the director's cut is funny, because like when I say it, like it improves it and everything, and it's like, it's not that it like adds any extra narrative depth. It's just, but I like one, that it fleshes Matt Murdock out a little bit more. We see him doing a lot more active lawyering or investigating as just himself, and things like that. But it also gives us the most unhinged scene of him, the one where he like Jack's homie gets in the car with the Mercedes guy. He's running it back and forth, and just like the image of a blind man running a car back and forth is just fucking hilarious. And he's like laughing and like yelling at the guy while he's doing it. It's like, Matt, what the fuck are you doing? And like, this is just him as Matt doing this. Like, it's like, what the fuck are you doing, my guy? It's so it kind of, it adds a little bit of stuff to him in that way, like, because I think it hits, I think it helps as far as like when you're kind of comparing like, this character to the comic book stuff, like, because again, like even if this isn't like the best representation, this is not Matt Murdock in Daredevil. Like, this guy is slutty. He makes blind jokes about himself all the time. And he also has zero regard for his secret identity. Like, they even said, so I watched the version that is the factor fiction mode, where it brings up like little trivia stuff or like behind the scenes bits. I don't know why it's called factor fiction, because I'm pretty sure they were all facts. So I don't know if I was supposed to guess that some of these were untrue, but
I'm not sure. Video mode.
But they really did like they like would mention each comic book issue that they were referencing, or how many, like pretty much any character that is spoken about is the name of a writer, somebody that's written Daredevil at some point.
As a big ass comic book nerd, I clocked all of those.
There's so many. So
they do that. They reference covers and things like that. So it's like, they are like, like people gave a shit, and like these are people that do like Daredevil. So it's like, I don't think that that they were blatantly like trying to have a bad representation of Matt Murdock or Daredevil. But like, I think this again, it's kind of a similar to another movie that came out around this time, Constantine. That's like, this has the spirit of Daredevil. Is this a comic book accurate? Yeah, totally. This is Daredevil. No, not really. This is something else. But they tried. And they captured the spirit and the essence enough to where I can enjoy this version. And so I think the director's cut definitely adds like a lot more, and helps the case of Matt Murdock specifically.
I would say this is probably closer to a Daredevil comic than Constantine is to a John Constantine.
Totally. Totally.
For sure. Like, this gets a lot of the details and the particulars, which is, of course, the biggest thing that nerds seem to care about. But it also, I mean, in the director's cut, you get a name drop for Turk Bennett, who's like Daredevil's longtime criminal informant that he uses. Like, you get like, these guys did their homework. And you get the impression, like, you get, was it Meredith Grey as Karen Page? And you're like, well, that's kind of a waste of her. Like, they're clearly gunning for a sequel if they're putting her in a role that small, kind of like Michael Shannon and Jonah Hex. Like,
and they even like gave her like a moment where she like, like turn like, like figures out a pivotal detail or whatever. They even
in the director's cut.
Correct.
Yes, in the director's cut. They even dyed Ben Affleck's hair a color that it's like, it's only, you can, like, when he's in the sun, you can see it reflects red, kind of the way that they do it in the comics. So like, they were trying, they threw in enough small details.
And that little kid's like the young version of him, they dyed his hair the same color, and it looks frankly ridiculous.
It looks a little silly.
That kid is horrible. Oh my god, I forgot how bad that kid is in these early sections. When he's in the hospital and his dad comes in and is like, yeah, so I was talking to the doctor, and he just goes, I'm blind. I know. I was like, oh Jesus, kid.
Also, only in the director's cut. That's what I like is you can tell that this is not just the studio wasn't like, okay, throw some deleted scenes in it for the DVD for an unrated cut or whatever. This is a director's cut.
Yeah.
Like some of the things are so minuscule that are changed.
Yeah.
Like,
totally.
like 2 lines of good dialogue in that scene. Like, because in the theatrical version, he just sits down and he comes over and hugs him. Like, I think he says one thing and then he comes in and hugs him. But that whole like exchange between them is only in the director's cut. Speaking of the director, I watched a video last night that said that had some interviews with him and stuff, and apparently he's a big Daredevil guy, and he tried his best to make it as comic accurate as he thought he could in a cinematic adaptation,
which is not really something that was like the norm in 2003. Like Spider-Man's adherence to a lot of the things, and even that got some important details wrong, but that was about as close to comic accurate as you could get in the early aughts. It wasn't until like Iron Man and the MCU kicks off that we really start getting comic book accurate representations by and large for a lot of these things, because the comic book stories were just kind of a realm for people to play in. So yeah, comic accuracy wasn't necessarily like prized at this moment.
And I'd say before this movie, you don't get a lot of people who like want to, like Sam Raimi. I don't care what he says. I don't think he's ever read a comic book. Come on, Sam Raimi. Come on, dude.
Look at the man. Dude knows comics.
As much as I love the first 3 Spider-Man movies, the Tobey Maguire ones, that man has never read a fucking comic book. And the same with Tim Burton. Come on.
Tim Burton, I believe.
Tim Burton has definitely never read a comic book. No, of course not.
But Sam Raimi, you take that slander out of your mouth, sir.
I don't think so. It's just that those 3 films have always hit me that way. Just because, I don't know, it's just, it really comes off as someone who's really good at making a film, but doesn't really understand comic books at all.
Mm-hmm. And I know with like some of the stuff that they cut to, it's like they cut a lot of like you can tell it was like the stuff that the studio was like, because one thing that you notice in the director's cut is you realize like how little action scenes there are in this movie. Like there's really only like 4 or 5 set pieces, not very many. For once the director's cut is, it's 2 hours and 10 minutes. Versus like the one that they put out was only like 105 minutes, like an hour 40.
An hour
so
45,
they cut like 30 minutes almost out of this movie. And a lot of it is like kind of character stuff, so you can kind of tell that, as the studio, there's like, all right, let's trim it down to just the lean action superhero stuff. That's what people are coming for, versus like, in the director's cut, like, it's a lot of that court case. It's a lot of them like kind of doing stuff that is not Daredevil related, which I dig, like, because I like the emphasis on that. The character, like, he's a lawyer and he does lawyer things. Like, he's not like Batman that, like, what's Batman do during the day? Nothing. Fucking sit around and sleep and fucking do nothing. Spider-Man's in school during the daytime. He's not doing, like, Daredevil don't take time off. He's either fighting crime at night or he's fighting crime during the daytime. He's putting in that work. So like, I like how in this version, like, they put the emphasis that like he is a lawyer, like he uses his lawyering to like also help in his vigilante-ness. So like, I like that they brought that in, but then there was like some half-baked stuff, like obviously like his faith is supposed to be very important to the character, and I love how there's one hallucination scene where he like imagines a nun above his bed.
Well,
and
that's his
like
mom.
That's his mom.
Yeah, his mom. But like that's like it. Like they do it one time and then that's it. So it's like they could have used, some of that extra time to like work that in, but it's like they put it in one time and they just like never really brought it back up until again we have like the fight in the church. But it's like, well, that hasn't really that doesn't give us much because I haven't seen him hang out at this church. I haven't seen him praying or nothing, So
but in the director's cut, they make a point of making sure he's not at church, though.
Yeah.
Instead of him just not being there, people
True.
bitch at him about it from time to time.
I mean, and the Catholic guilt is like central to the character of Daredevil, which is one of the
For
things
sure.
I love about the character. And I feel like it's kind of glossed over here. Like we don't really get enough of it. And I feel like maybe if they'd done a sequel, like Ben Affleck was really pushing for the Kevin Smith's Guardian Devil as kind of the premise for the sequel, and maybe the Born Again storyline was really kind of pushing for those, which deal more with the Catholicism of the character.
Yeah, that was the opening shot. Was
right.
that Guardian Devil cover?
Right, with hanging off the cross there. I think if we'd gotten a sequel, we'd probably see more of that. They try, but again, it's kind of like one of those like, what can I get away with kind of things. Our audience is really going to sit for a character who's like, weeping with a rosary, kneeling at an altar and lighting candles. Maybe not.
He's a complicated man,
and no one understands him but his Foggy.
Yeah. No, I mean, he really is, especially in this movie, and I think that they add a few things to his personality, to his character, especially in the director's cut, that makes it so, as long as you have a base understanding that he's Catholic, and it's like I say, they do bring it up a few more times in the director's cut. Hey, we're going to see you at church, like, are you coming to church? We're open on Sunday, right?
Yeah.
I just think that the things that they add, I'm just saying, for me, that I don't think it's underrepresented. Like, I get it is a core part of Daredevil, but again, it's context I already have. If I were somebody who didn't know anything about Daredevil, that might be a problem. I might have trouble, seeing that in the character, but I already have that context.
Well, you might argue
that doesn't really.
That's half the point of making these movies, right? Is trying to get people who don't know the character familiar with the character. And so
I completely agree with you. Yes.
If we're not instilling those things that are the core tenets of the character into the character in the first movie, then
agreed.
What the fuck are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah. That's why the director's cut rules and theatrical cut drools.
Yeah. Again, it doesn't add like a ton of like depth but it helps. It's a smoother ride.
It pads it out a
with
little more.
all this. Yeah, like it feels like an actual movie. Like I feel like like this isn't just trying to be a kind of superhero thing. Like this is still like I feel like they put a lot of emphasis on, again, like so many things that are, again, like not action and stuff. Like they kind of spend so much time in that kind of arena. So I know Ben Affleck as Matt and Daredevil is kind of as split opinions. What do you guys think? Because like again, like with some of the added like director's cut stuff, like I appreciated like the humor he brought to this kind of surprisingly. Like there's multiple times where he like made me laugh, like the like fake bit that they're playing up his blindness in the court scene. Like that scene is absolutely ridiculous. I was just like, you know what? I was like, Ben Affleck, like he's trying, like he's kind of putting in the work. And again, like I think they do really well with like he has like charm and personality, but at the same time like he is the brooding takes over, and so I generally like his performance. The only quibble is him in the suit, like his mouth doesn't look right for the mask and the suit.
The suit
I don't know how to describe it, but his mouth just isn't
on his nose either. It's like way up here.
It like barely comes down, but then like I don't know. He has a little too supple of cheeks for me to believe that he is in his Daredevil peak physical condition shape, bouncing around kind of guy.
He's a little squishy, yeah.
It is a smidge squishy, which there's nothing wrong with that, people. I'm just saying for the character, it does take away some of like the believability that I'm like, oh yeah, like Ben Affleck is a guy that is able to be doing these acrobatics and things like that. Is kind of funny. But I think him as Matt Murdock is really great. he does a weird kind of pseudo Batman voice when he's Daredevil. But it's kind of it's whatever. But I actually like him as Matt Murdock quite a bit.
I think I like his characterization, particularly as Murdoch. I think the suit, it was not made with him in mind specifically. I think the suit was made to look cool. And then like the
Mark
actor
Steven Johnson was a big fan of motorcycles. That's where he was inspired for the costume. Learned that in the Fact or Fiction mode. I'll drop some of these little
Nice.
tidbits in, because some of them are actually like really fun trivia things, but then other ones are actually really silly.
right. No, and I definitely appreciate that. Because I mean that makes in retrospect that makes a lot of sense. But then by the same token, like it like you said, like the mask is not really designed for his face. And I'm comparing it to maybe like the Charlie Cox mask, which does actually fit really well with what that character is. And like you see the evolution of it throughout the course of that first season on Netflix. Until you get to the end. Now we're seeing like in She-Hulk, we're seeing the silver mask or the gold
I
mask.
liked the yellow costume. I like the yellow costume.
Yellow costume's
In
great.
comics and in She-Hulk, I thought it looked great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, so like I think Affleck is doing fine. I like the charm. Like Affleck is a charming actor. That's something he does really well. That's why he was so perfect in something like David Fincher's Gone Girl. Is like there
And
is an
200
inherent
cigarettes.
there is like an inherent charm to him as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you're kind of like, this guy might be a piece of shit, but damn it, is he charming. And that comes through. And Murdoch should be charming. He's, as you said earlier, DeVaughn, he's a slut. Daredevil is maybe the
Really
sluttiest of all
is.
superheroes.
Truly.
And this movie does not give me enough slutty Daredevil, frankly. I
He's a
need Daredevil
dog.
to be
He's
sluttier
a
here.
junkyard dog, this boy. I tell you what.
Well, we do
Ooh,
get
boy.
that some gal leaving him a voicemail, so I mean he's getting hit up. He's got people on rotation, and you in his whole bit in the coffee shop, you know he's done that at least 5 times.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
he's got that
times a
move,
day.
that the whole honey move. Oh, what am I, blind? Yeah,
That is,
actually,
that is
like, he
well
knows what he's
rehearsed.
doing.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing.
I just, you know, I love that. I think like peak slutty Daredevil, at least in terms of what we've seen on screens, is him doing the slut walk or the walk of shame in She-Hulk. Maybe my favorite
He's just
Daredevil
holding his
moment ever.
boots.
Yeah,
He's just holding his boots and walking.
just walking barefoot. It's
Full
amazing.
costume, holding his boots.
I
It's
love
fantastic.
it.
Phenomenal.
It's so good. It's so fucking good. And I want to see this. I want to see this Daredevil doing a walk of shame, frankly.
Dude, yeah.
But I mean, that's one of like the core thing again, and one of those core things about the character is Daredevil's a fucking slut, and so yeah, you should be able to like you should be able to tell why like someone like Karen or Elektra would be attracted to this guy to begin with, and I think Affleck does that very well personally. Again, the costume, I'm not a fan of it, but other than that, I think he's doing a fine job.
I mean, I think his charm enough is even what sells that silly playground fight scene. Because yes, is it silly? Yes, but is this a comic book movie? We're watching a comic book movie. Give me something silly. It's so ridiculous, but yet I think he's even enough to, he's charming enough to sell that scene.
I think this film is very unique, even within the early 2000s superhero films, that it's able to really find a good balance on the camp, because it's a little campy, but it knows when to be campy. Like, I think somebody can hate this movie, but they can't say that it doesn't nail its tone completely. I think it does. I
don't know. I feel like there are some tonal shifts in here that are pretty extreme. And I don't know that we sell the swings quite as hard as we need to go from because it wants to be dark and broody, but it also wants to be campy and silly. And like, I don't know.
I don't know. I think it kind of works because it's like the movie is like a majority broody. But then again, it's like them kind of having an awareness, being like, okay, well, it's a comic book movie. We can't have it be just, sad and dreary all the time. So then like even if it is like, you know, angsty and moody. And then again, just then has these like kind of like random bits of comedy. Or you let Colin Farrell just do whatever he wants. And I love because as much as I think that they do a pretty good job with like Matt and Daredevil, this version of Bullseye is nothing like the comic book version, like literally at all.
No.
You know, he is but I kind of like it in this, like instead of being this like, you know, well-known assassin, like well-trained, all these things, he's kind of an enigma in this. You want to know what my favorite aspect about this version of Bullseye is? Whenever he swings his jacket around, it makes a snake rattle sound. It goes for why? Just because, you know, like,
he probably has rattlesnake rattles in the lining of his coat. I would not be surprised.
Like this version of Bullseye is a freak. He's like the perfect amount of you know, like because every other character is playing it straight except for him,
right?
Like which is
and that's why it works, because if everyone else was doing what he's doing, it would fall apart. I will say, like, the comic book version is still, he's a sociopath. He's still unhinged, just in a different way. Like Farrell's playing it like at 11.
Well, because in the comics, he's like one of those characters that he's obsessed with Daredevil. Like he wants to be Daredevil. Correct. Essentially, is like he is like has like an infatuation about him. I love how this version of Bullseye doesn't really give a shit about Daredevil. He's just mad that he made him miss. That's it. Yeah. That's the only reason Bullseye wants to kill him in this finale.
Mad.
He could care less about Daredevil, you know. So it's like yeah.
That's a stupid motivation, but Farrell sells it 100%. Like in anything else, like I would be like, that is dumb. That is stupid. That is the reason that is silly. But Farrell,
he's like, I'm doing this one for free. He's like, I want to kill you for free. I'm pissed at you. You're messing up my rep.
Well, I mean, to be fair, if you were a dude what was known for like hitting the bullseye and you had never missed, like your whole identity is built on the fact that you have never missed, and this one motherfucker what makes you miss, I'd be mad too. I don't know if I'd get, well, I'm not an unhinged person. Like,
well, I was gonna say he already kills people professionally, so it's a lateral move to be. No,
he knocked that man on the tracks, and he did not help him.
Well, that's different than murdering as a profession. Bullseye's a hired assassin.
He wears a uniform
in their own way.
Daredevil wears a uniform. You wear uniforms at work. It's his profession. He doesn't get paid for it, but it's his side gig.
You might need to stand on your tiptoes to help that reach there a little bit, Tucker.
No.
One of the Fact or Fiction tidbits, this was the first time that Colin Farrell got to use his natural accent in an American film.
Okay.
Fantastic.
He was always forced to put that nice Irish accent away. And he finally got to be Irish again. Not a Bullseye thing. Bullseye is not Irish.
No.
That is like not a part of his thing. So like, again, they're just kind of like, whatever.
It almost feels like Colin Farrell just walked onto set and was like, fuck it, I'm just going to play it how I want. And everyone was just like, whatever you say, sir. Yes, absolutely. Now I'm kind of curious to see what his American filmography had been up to this point.
I think he did Payphone a little bit before this. I think that was 01 or 02.
We have American Outlaws. We have Heart's War. Minority Report, Phone Booth in 2002, Recruit in 2003. So yeah, he's got a pretty solid, and he was already like the heartthrob going into this movie. So like to see him play this very not heartthrobby role, I think took a lot of people like, why are you doing this? And the point is, he's a silly little Irish guy who loves to act and have fun.
He's just like doing bug eyes the entire movie all the time. And like, you guys will have to go on my Blue Sky, because while I was watching, I clipped this one scene, and Kingpin like tosses him a rose, and he sniffs it and looks disgusted by it.
Yeah.
And the yelp that I made while I'm recording this video, because like it is such a funny reaction. I'm like, what was he doing? Like, what was he being told, if anything, before doing these scenes? Like, it was just, he does such funny little details throughout the movie that I'm just like, man, I love you. Like, he really is just like doing this to like have a good time.
Oh yeah. We see him do other roles like similar to this later in his career, but I feel like this is the first time that he really gets to sink his teeth into something this big and silly, which I kind of love.
They not only let him let his hair down, it's off, it's gone.
Yeah.
No hair for this. I don't know if it was maybe because again I was like watching the Blu-ray. It like makes it the like first intro when you first see that, like there's a lighting where you can like kind of see the seam for the thing, because they made the bullseye out of like a gel pad.
Right.
It's like a prosthetic that goes over and like
latex,
in like, yeah. So with like the very good Blu-ray quality and my really good TV, I could like kind of see the where the like blending didn't quite happen with the makeup. So just every little detail about Colin Farrell's bullseye is just fun. I love how he says, "I want a bloody costume." He doesn't get one. He never gets it.
In the director's cut, I want a fucking costume, because apparently he couldn't say bloody and wouldn't say bloody. And so every take they had of him was saying, I want a fucking costume.
Yeah.
And they had to dub him over for the movie, for the theatrical.
And there's the director's cut too. A cut that they made for the rating is whenever they go to the train crime scene in the theatrical, you don't see half a guy's body getting carried off on a stretcher, but they show it in the director's cut, and I was like, oh shit. I was like, I totally forgot.
Yeah.
There's it's I don't know, it's easier. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm stumbling a lot, obviously. Rewind that. What I'm trying to say is it's not important. I'm saying there's more. We were talking earlier about the director's cut and what's added and what's taken away, and that there's not as much action in the director's cut, but that's only because I think it's longer, because there's actually stuff added to the action, and I was trying to articulate that in a way that wasn't so technical like I just did, but I failed. Doesn't happen that often, though. Usually I'm pretty good about that. But yeah, there's added stuff in the action scenes. You were speaking of like added violence and stuff. When in the fight with Bullseye, when he's beating up Elektra and he grabs her head and is like slamming it against the side of that building, that's only in the director's cut.
Right.
Like some of that action's been extended. Yeah. I don't know why I can't speak all of a sudden, you guys. I apologize.
It's like murder makes Bullseye horny.
Oh, totally. And like he was like yeah, because I didn't remember, like I remember while I was watching that part, I was like I don't remember him like really enjoying beating the shit out of Elektra. Like I remember him stabbing her, but that was like it.
Right.
Like, he's like really like having
he kisses her when he stabs her.
Yeah, like that's in the director's cut only as well. Yeah.
He's a little. I don't
know if he was supposed to, because Jennifer Garner's a good actress, but her reaction to that is like, whoa. I don't think he told her he was gonna do that.
Ooh,
she got a real ick, an ick in real time was caught on camera.
Yes, I mean maybe, I don't know. But yeah, again,
quite
like,
an ick.
Some of the faces he's making after he like kills someone, and you're just like, ooh, he basically does everything but like lick his lips and rub his nipples. Essentially,
no, but like he's like always panting. He's always like, yeah,
and he'll, instead of rubbing his nipples, he rubs his scar on his forehead.
He's like, yes, yeah. Fingers himself, fingers his forehead. What a freak!
What a dang ass freak is Colin Farrell's Bullseye. And I don't think any comic book movie character has been as dangy, assy, or freaky as Colin Farrell's Bullseye, quite frankly. Like, he might be the
zesty
freakiest
villain. I'm here for it, though. I'm here for the zesty representation.
I was going to say, we would expect nothing less from one of the co-hosts of the Tainted Love podcast. So.
Exactly.
So that's why, like, it was nice to see Jennifer Garner as Elektra in Deadpool and Wolverine, but could I instead have had Bullseye, Colin Farrell's Bullseye?
Oh yeah, that would have
man.
been crazy.
Oh,
Because
man.
I didn't finish Deadpool and Wolverine, but like, is the version of Elektra, is it the version of her from like in this or in the Elektra movie? Because she kind of changes into a different person in that second movie.
Yeah.
So is it her at that point, and she like kind of has her like supernatural abilities?
Well, she does mention Daredevil, and that the Daredevil
Right.
from her universe is dead.
I don't think she has any like superpowers or anything.
I mean, she's more the Elektra from this movie, I feel like. I only saw the Elektra movie once, but yeah, I do remember her being weirdly different in that movie.
I remember the Elektra movie being aggressively bad from when we covered
ridiculous.
it for this podcast. Like, and it sucks because there were two female-fronted superhero movies around that time, Catwoman and Elektra, and they're both awful. Like, they're both really legitimately terrible films, and I'm like, we deserve better. Like, I want the representation, but we can do better, people. Like, it's like we're not trying because there's ladies, and that sucks.
I like her though as Elektra. I think she's fun in this.
I like her.
She's got good chemistry with Ben Affleck. Did they date at some point? Right? I don't know.
They were married. Yeah,
they had children.
That's right.
Together, like 3 children together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ben and his Jennifers.
I was gonna say, after J-Lo, I think, like, after this most recent thing with J-Lo, I think he and her were spotted together a lot more frequently. So
that dog, Ben Affleck, you fucking
again,
dog.
Perfect fucking casting. Just one of our sluttiest actors, one of our sluttiest superheroes.
Truly, but she's really great. They did this funny thing with her character because she has these green contacts in. And they enhance them. But then after her dad dies, they're not bright anymore because the color is taken out of her eyes, literally. They're so they do really funny things in this that there's a lot of times in this fact or fiction, whoever's writing this is like maybe worked on this and is like kind of stroking themselves a little bit, like, oh yeah, so we did this really cool thing. There's this one scene, it's showing it's like little kid Matt at night or something like that, and they go, the scene was used to illustrate the desire of the director and cinematographer to make the nights mythical. They controlled lighting and hues, only allowing emphasis on certain shadows. I was like, well, yeah, that's what cinematographers and gaffers do. That's
right.
Yeah, good job, you.
What the fuck, man?
Wow.
You think we don't know how movies work? Like, come on. That's hilarious. Oh my god. Yeah, my big complaint about the casting of Jennifer Garner, it was my complaint at the time, is that she's not Greek at all. Like, that's such an essential part of the character. And I think even the most recent,
they even speak
Elektra,
Greek in this one,
right? Even the Netflix Elektra isn't Greek. And I'm like, that's such a key part of that character. Like, if there's, I'm not saying we should have probably cast Nia Vardalos or something, but like we could have found a Greek actress to cast here. But
it's true.
It's 2003. We're still trying to get away with whitewashing stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah. 2003.
And that one guy that plays her dad, I always forget his
Eric
name.
Avari, the Wheeze and the Juice guy.
Who's in the stuff.
Yeah, one of the all-time great that guy actors, Eric Avari from Stargate, Encino Man. See our previous episodes on those movies. Like, he's just one of those guys who shows up, and every time he does, I'm like, oh, it's Eric Avari. I'm happy. I'm glad he's here.
Dude, yes.
This movie has a lot of those guys. Leland Orser, Eric Avari.
Shout out Leland Orser. Did you guys cover the guest yet?
No, it's on the list though. You went in on that one?
He plays the dad in that? Oh, do I want in on Dan Stevens? You know I do.
What a silly question.
No, I do.
What a silly question.
Wowzers.
You're right. I do know that.
Wowzers, that's actually Leland Orser's name in this because he is Wesley Owen Welsh. Wow, as we learn in the the scenes that were added in with the director's
He's
cut.
our upside down mom. He is really good at playing really skeevy, creepy, weirdo guys. Like that is like his bread and butter, Leland Orser. Like he is one of those guys. Like I remember he has the most chilling scene in Seven. Like the scene that like makes my blood run cold, and it's entirely his performance that does it.
He's the guy in the place with the thing, right?
Yeah,
and the lady.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want to say any of those other words. I'm sorry, but you guys know what I'm talking about, right? Like,
exactly.
Right? Yeah, I don't know if I could act again after that scene. Like,
no.
kudos to him because I don't know if I could go on after that.
We talk about it in our episode on that movie because, of course, Seven was supposed to have gotten a sequel.
Similar to his performance in that interrogation scene, he's really great in this movie. That like. Anytime he's around Kingpin, he just looks like he's about to shit himself. Like he just showing how fearful Fisk is, but like he literally looks like he's about to like blow his pants, like at any moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And this movie adds the context to make you realize why he's acting like that, because in the theatrical cut you're just like, wow, this is a really weird, timid little guy. And then in the movie, that scene comes right after you see Kingpin just brutally and for no reason murder his bodyguards. Gee, I wonder why a guy would be really timid and weaselly after that.
Brutal. That's not a good enough word for that, because wow, I don't know, man. When he breaks that guy's neck, I've never seen anything like that before, you guys. I've never seen another human being like do that with their face and body, and I'm really impressed with it. And I don't know what to do with that.
I really love his reaction to Kingpin whenever it's like in the third act, and he's like, and Kingpin's like, oh yeah, he's on his way here, blah blah blah, and he's like, oh, how'd you know, blah blah, and then he goes, Kingpin goes, send all the guards home, and he like looks at him and is like, oh, what? And he goes, and Michael Clark Duncan, bless his heart, I'm from the Bronx. This is something you wouldn't know anything about. And like Leland Orson's face is just like, okay. And he just says, and he's just like, all right, and just like walks away.
Because what else are you gonna do?
I can't imagine you'd want to argue with Wilson Fisk about too much.
That's pretty tough, though. Be like, send all the security because I'm just gonna beat his ass myself. Like that's hard shit, and that is very much very in line with Kingpin. I like because in the comics was Kingpin the one that killed Matt's dad. Was that or was that a thing that they do in this? Because how you guys mentioned before, like you always got to tie the villain to their backstory somewhere.
I feel like it's the second one. I don't feel like that happens in the comics from my recollection. They're like the two are unrelated.
Kingpin started out as a Spider-Man villain.
Correct.
Like he became more of a Daredevil villain, but his roots are in Spider-Man shit. And I don't think that. And Daredevil was before Spider-Man. Didn't Daredevil come out maybe the same year or a couple years before? Spider-Man was in 1963. I'm pretty sure we had Yellow Daredevil before we had Spider-Man.
Which I think makes more sense because it's like it's kind of weird, this teenager dealing with this like grown-ass man, mob rich guy. It's like, no, let an adult handle him. So I like that they like kind of transferred him over to Daredevil.
Spider-Man first appeared in August 1962. Daredevil first appeared in April 1964.
Oh, damn. I can't believe I've done this. Okay. Are you guys ready? Here it goes. If anybody wants to press record to have this for them anytime they want it.
This is going to end up getting beeped out of the final record, I have a feeling.
I was wrong. And you were right.
That's going to be my ringtone on my phone.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, enjoy it while you can. It doesn't happen that often.
No,
Not
it doesn't.
because I don't like to admit that I'm wrong. It's just I'm normally not. Is the thing.
Yeah, no. So yeah, that's so just a couple years off, really. But yeah, you're right.
Wow.
Like Kingpin is a Spider-Man villain, so I don't think it's one of those things like Batman's parents' murderer is like this just rando villain named Joe Chill. I have a feeling that's the same as Daredevil as well.
Well, I mean, who walks down an alley called Crime Alley anyway? Like, what are you doing?
Rich
It's
people,
called
of
Crime
course.
Alley. Crime.
It's
alley.
the alley where the crimes happen.
Like, there's no and crime only means one thing. It's not like one of those words that has different meanings, or there's another word that's spelled the same but pronounced different that means something else.
And then
Crime.
And then I
just
love
means
how
crime.
for this movie then too, they also kill Matt's dad in an alley. Because they're like, hey, you guys like Batman? You guys like Batman? All right, here's a little Batman now.
Outside of a theater.
It's actually really funny watching this and how much they're like merging Batman and Spider-Man in such a funny way, which is essentially kind of what Daredevil is in a way. But it's very funny. Like, yeah, like, okay, now we got to do the Batman scene.
Yeah.
But then it's like, oh, I really liked Spider-Man's web slinging, so let's have him do some grappling hook slinging, you know. And it's like, yeah, all right, we see you. We see you.
Blind.
We also get the early aughts, every superhero movie contractually obligated DNA reassembly shot where like
the acid goes in his eyes and then
creep down his ocular category. Yeah. And you're just like, okay. Now, Tucker, I'm actually reading here, according to this website I just found, Gotham's Crime Alley is named after Lord Everett Crime.
Of course,
one of the members of the Gotham intelligentsia. So I mean,
why is his last name Crime?
Unclear.
Because normally your last name, like way back in the day, your last name was based on like what your family trade was. So if your last name's Crime, I have to assume.
Okay. I clicked on his entry and it looks like they changed it at Ellis Island. His original name, his family name was Kremenutzinkoff. So they shortened it down.
But still, the person was like, "Yeah, let's just call this Crime Alley." There's nothing wrong with that. I can't see anybody problems with that. That's fine, right? Crime Alley.
It's pretty logical for Gotham
Why
City.
we just call it Shit Street?
That's I was going to say,
right?
There's a guy named Everett or Edward Enigma. Like, that's the beauty of like the Silver Age Batman characters is that they all have the most obvious names. Like Rainbow. There's a guy named Rainbow Raider, and his real name is Roy G. Bivolo. Like, you can't make this shit up. Like, that's just what they did.
This is goofy back in those days. For the children, it was for the children.
That's right.
For the children.
Speaking of cities, I do have to point out that I know one reason that people are probably angry at this movie. They are shooting in LA and claiming it as New York. That's a sin for both parties involved. You know, like LA, we're not trying to be New York. We really actually don't want to be you at all. New York just thinks that. But then I also would feel disrespected if I was a New York person watching this, especially like the scene in the subway. Everyone knows what a New York subway looks like, and that is totally LA. Like that. It is the LA Metro station underground. It is so disrespectful. That they did this because it like almost all of this was shot in LA. LOL. That's really funny.
For a character like Daredevil, who is so quintessentially New York, like New York is him and Spider-Man, like those are the two Marvel characters that are specifically New York-centric,
a specific neighborhood too. He's the devil from Hell's Kitchen. He's very specific to a neighborhood. Well, like Spider-Man's from Queens,
right?
But like it's his city. Daredevil, he goes other places, but he's like Hell's Kitchen is like it's part of his identity.
Exactly.
It's a character in his story.
Yeah. So they use like a lot of like digital map paintings in this to stand in for the skylines of New York.
Do.
Silly.
Like, I love the fact that like Hell's Kitchen in the 70s, like 60s and 70s when Daredevil was created, was like this like crime infested hellhole kind of place. And then like now it's like this
No, it
very
was the kitchen of that place. That's where they made the food for that place.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's why they called it Hell's Kitchen, because that's where all the restaurants in the bad neighborhood.
That's where all the demons was cooking.
Yes.
But then like nowadays it's like been gentrified. It's like very upper crust. It's been kind of redone, has this, you know, large, vibrant, thriving LGBTQ community. Like, and
the Hex Kitchen now.
And now it's like, when the new Netflix series are like, yeah, Hell's Kitchen is so bad. And people from New York are like, no, it's
Is
really
it though?
not. So no, not at all. So yeah, I don't know. I find that just an amusing bit of New York trivia.
Mm-hmm.
Trivia is tight.
Yeah. Fact or fiction.
God, everybody loves trivia.
I swear they all have to be facts, but I'm very confused on, did they just really like the alliteration? They're like, yeah, we might as well say, because now I'm wondering if I was reading some of these and somebody's putting in like gag facts in there.
Yeah.
I mean, they mainly seemed legit. It was
like,
a lot
did
of.
Did you know Ben Affleck was 87 years old when he filmed this role? You're like, wait a minute, that's fiction.
Despite playing a character in the movie Good Will Hunting, where someone asks about apples, Ben Affleck does not eat apples in real life. He calls them mealy.
He has no teeth. They are false.
Fact or fiction? They did say some funny stuff, or interesting stuff about the effects. Because the effects in this very 2003, they were like experimenting with a lot of, so like the Rubber Man action stuff was them. They would like cyber scan the actors.
Cyber.
Yeah, they said cyber scan.
That's an old people word. Only old people say cyber.
Hey, but they were doing it, and they were doing it for Daredevil. They were doing it, and so they would like scan them and then use these like kind of computer rendered animations on it. And they said it took them 9 months to design Daredevil's shadow vision, quote unquote, is what they call it.
Interesting.
They said that took 9 months of deciding like kind of this whole sonar kind of thing that he does, where he basically has vision. Yeah, like you guys said, it's kind of like I like how they do, because I noticed there was like a couple extra like lines that they do to like try to sell, his like play up his abilities. Like you said, like the added hospital scene, like it's for him to, because he goes, oh, I heard you guys talking out in the hallway, like like when it's around, or in the scene when he's about to when he has Elektra on the roof and he's like, stay out here in the rain because I want to see your face.
Right.
But he like has like extra added dialogue. He's like the temperature has dropped 3 degrees and the moisture has increased this much and blah blah blah. So it's like I like that they gave like did add in like little details to at least try to explain the shadow vision and like give you a good sense of his like keen senses. But at the same time, it's like like as unless it's like completely silent, this guy can pretty much see.
Right.
Like he can pretty much see.
Relevant question. Now, we've all seen the Daredevil Netflix series, correct? We've all seen that? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what do we like? Do we like Sonar or do we like World on Fire? Which do we prefer? I'm going to say I can't decide because I kind of hate them both.
I haven't watched Daredevil in a minute.
I was going to say it's been a hot minute since I've watched the show. I should
like-
probably
it's
rewatch
like-
it before Born Again, but I won't do that.
It's almost kind of like the outlines of everything he can see are solid, but then like everything else looks like it's on fire. Like when you can see oil vapor in the air, kind of.
No,
When it's really hot,
Yeah, I'm looking at them side by side. No, I like this version better. I like the idea that he's kind of bat-like, so he like kind of, and because I think it makes sense in the idea that like it's because he can like either see the water droplets hitting the surface of something, or I like that one scene when he's at the party and he's like making his way up to Elektra, and it's like, oh, he can see the steam from the appetizers,
and the perfume,
the smoke and the perfume, yeah. I love his look of disgust because it totally makes sense. Matt Murdock would hate smokers
Oh
because
yeah,
of his
for
keen
sure.
senses. So he makes a really nasty face at the guy smoking a cigar that I thought was really funny. But no, I like this version in a way, because like I like how it like also they show it hindering him a couple times too, like when he's trying to grab his baton when Bullseye throws it, but then like a bus goes by and it like fucks him up for a minute, and
The
they like
motorcycle explodes.
Yeah, it explodes.
oh yeah, that's what it was.
Motorcycle
Yeah,
blows
motorcycle.
up.
Yeah, so because yeah, I don't know, the world on fire view, it just feels dramatic. Like I don't know, like what are we doing here? Like, you know, yes, I get it. He's a devil. There's fire in
See,
hell. I get it.
I think that one, for the reasons you just said, does not work. The Netflix one, but for the 2003 one, I think that it misrepresents how well he can see without having eyes,
Right.
because
It's a little too good, because
Yeah.
I think the series definitely does a better job of like showing that he is still in fact blind.
Right.
You know.
yeah,
Agreed.
like you can see her corneas, right? Like if it was like the sound, like sonar, you wouldn't be able to like see the pupils and the corneas. You know what I mean? It's just a weird
Hmm.
choice. Like I said, I think
According
they're
to
both bad. I think they're both terrible.
according to Fact or Fiction, those contacts did make Ben Affleck blind himself. Oh, so he was in it. He was in depth.
I remember LeVar Burton in an interview I read in Disney Adventure magazine when I was a child.
Ooh, I
LeVar
like that
Burton,
magazine.
speaking about his role of Geordi in Star Trek: The Next Generation, said that he is most like Geordi when he had to wear the like opaque white contacts, because he's like, I can't see anything when I do that. So whenever I take off the visor and I have those contacts in, I'm pretty much just, that's when I feel most like in line with Geordi. Geordi, another blind character who sees differently than the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's got
And
that
why is
visor,
why
that crazy visor.
why is he not? Why is LeVar Burton not playing Daredevil? That maybe that's what I want. I want to see
I don't
LeVar
know.
Burton, circa the '90s, playing Daredevil.
So, I mean, effects aside, what do you think? Do you think the fighting, him as a martial artist, is represented well? Because obviously that's in the series. You know, is a
Right.
big selling card of is the choreography and everything. But like, what do you guys think they sell him in this as much of a formidable fighter?
I think that they do, but they don't back it up with anything. He's just a ninja. Like there's one of the things coming out of this movie. When I saw the theatrical version, my biggest gripe was like, where the fuck is Stick?
Yeah. Oh, they're
Like,
saving him for the Elektra movie, obviously.
Which
well,
is so strange. Yeah, he
did
taught
so
himself
much.
martial arts. Yeah, Matt
Yes.
taught himself apparently, but then Elektra gets to meet Stick
Right.
in her movie. Yeah, it's such a strange choice.
Well, it's just they did so much in this movie. That's the biggest sin of this movie for me, because I
Agreed.
love the director's cut. I think it's a fantastic movie. But they do so much. They cram the origin story in there. You've got Bullseye, you've got Elektra, you've got Kingpin, you've got all this
lawyer
stuff.
stuff.
Yes, like chill the fuck out. Let's calm down. Let's maybe spread this into a couple different movies. And I think, or make this one longer, which is definitely why I think the director's cut, one of the reasons it works a lot better, is because it has time to breathe and it has
Agreed.
time to explore at least a little bit all this shit that they're cramming into this movie.
Yeah, it definitely paces it out a little better, but even at 2 hours and 13 minutes, we're still just flying through a lot of shit.
And I'll tell you, the theatrical cut, even though it's a half hour shorter, is just so boring.
Mm-hmm.
The director's cut, I want more of it. Let's keep going. I could watch that director's cut for another half hour. Like, give me some more.
Mm-hmm.
As Busta Rhymes famously once said, give me some more.
I definitely would have taken more action, because I think even though there's not as much, I think the action's like solid, like, because I think they show him enough. Because again, since if we see that Daredevil isn't trained by Stick, it makes sense that he's not like super, like, he's more of a just like a very advanced brawler that like kind of jumps around a lot. Like, not gonna lie, that opening biker club scene, they cooked. That's a really fun fight scene. Like, I think they do a really cool things of like kind of showing again, like, there's like a scene part, he like kicks the gun into the light to like take the lights out, and then he like he grinds a guy down a rail. That's pretty. That's pretty on brand for Daredevil. That's pretty sick.
Yes.
He grapples and like slings himself into a ceiling fan. That's pretty cool. I think that opening fight scene is like really dope, and they like show how much of a badass he is. But then, like Tucker said, they set it up. But then after that, like, it's like he fights Bullseye twice, and then he fights Kingpin, and he fights Elektra in the park. That's like it. Like, that's really like all the action we're kind of getting with him.
The elements of that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. At least it's not that tired old. Oh, he just had to try harder and then he wins. Everything that, not recently, but there seems to be a trend in superhero movies where like they get beat, and it's just cause they weren't trying hard enough. They just had to come back and just do it again, but just better. And that this movie doesn't do that. It could very easily do that, but it doesn't.
I think part of that is the character himself. Like, Daredevil is the kind of character who will just get his ass handed to him over and over again and just keep getting up and keep fighting.
I don't think he ever holds back anyway, because he's just a dude. Though this movie kind of makes it seem like he has a little bit of super strength, maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like it's his like the reflexes and like his like kind of like they definitely
his agility, superhuman.
Yeah. Which that I'm not gonna lie, that is I think one thing in the series, like, I do kind of wish that they put a little bit more emphasis that he does have super abilities. Like, yes, he is like a really great fighter, and that's like kind of his main thing. They use his abilities like when he's like doing lawyer stuff more often, like when he's like doing the lie detector and everything. But like I like that they do put a little more emphasis that's like like the idea of like all of his senses got increased, so it's like your sense of touch and all that, so he is like very all this all the like kind of additional acrobatics and stuff, like them just like jumping around the pipes in the church, like, that's fine, it's silly, it's a good time, he's flipping around, and he's I love the opening too, when he like does the free dive off the top of the building, and then like does his blind parkour down the scaffolding on the side of the building, so it's like I like that they do lean, maybe if they do lean a little too much into his abilities, like giving him too much vision or seemingly being super strength, but at the same time, like because I feel like that's one thing I get bored with in the current superhero movies. It's like everybody is just very strong and fights good, nobody, like, it's like people aren't allowed to like have abilities anymore, so it's like I like that in this they at least like kind of play it up a little more.
And speaking of I love how, I think this might be the first time that we've seen in a superhero movie at the time a superhero that is just in pain from fucking around so much. Like the beginning of the movie when he's taking a shower, or like when he stands up and like his knees are cracking and shit. And then when he's taking that shower and he pulls a tooth out, he's like, oh shit. And I love that he does all this fucking crazy shit, but it is not without consequences. Like his body is tore up.
Did you see how much pain medications were in his cabinet?
Oh my god!
Like, it was like comical. Like, it was just all prescription bottles in this cabinet, because the dude
Vicodin, Percocet. Yeah,
they're like, oh yeah, Matt is a pill addict, by the way.
Well, it has to be.
It has to be.
Did you
I
see
thought
his back, dude? All the scars.
and he's a fucking psychopath that chooses pills. This guy is
Oh,
crazy.
man.
That's how you truly
They
know
did
he's
it on
crazy.
purpose. They did that for you so that you would know that he's completely
I hate
nuts.
that so much. That's like one of
So
my
gross.
biggest movie things. I'm like, oh my god, do people actually do that? That's disgusting. They're psychos.
Get
I
this
mean,
man a glass of
obviously
water.
they do, but yeah, that's observed from somewhere. No, and I think that's one of the cool things about Daredevil specifically. Again, is at the end of the day, yes, he has like heightened senses, and yes, he's a world class fighter, but he's still just a dude. Like he's just a dude out there doing everything he can. Like I love the duality of the character. The director's cut, I think, plays it up more. I think that's the only thing the Coolio subplot adds. Like I don't really like that subplot. I don't get a lot out of that subplot.
I like that.
Well, it's
I
showing
like how
that
they
the
set it up.
Kingpin has his hands in all the things. It all circles back to Kingpin.
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
Well,
I mean
like how
that
they set it up because he's going to bed, and he hears that's the woman that got killed. The case that he's doing. Remember when he's going to bed and he hears the lady getting killed, and he's like, "Fuck, I gotta sleep at some point. I can't save everybody. Sorry." Yeah,
Which
that was
again,
the woman.
they only do that once too, like because they like literally do a thing where he like sees her on the ground, in his apartment. Or
I
whatever.
loved that visual too. That was so cool, and it's so I don't know, it's so different.
I'm tired.
He basically does. He's like, "Fuck."
Shout out that I love him sleeping in one of those hyperbaric chamber beds.
Yeah.
That's very inspired.
sensory
Daredevil
deprivation
detail.
tank. Yeah, agreed.
How does that work though? Wouldn't your skin get really wrinkly? Wouldn't that water get really gross?
So I noticed he sleeps in for a certain amount of time because he also does sleep in a normal bed. So
when the ladies
they show him
over.
and they show him in both beds. Yeah, so he only stays in the chamber for like a certain amount of time, I think.
I don't think he's boning all those ladies in that sensory deprivation tank.
I don't
really
think
don't.
that the ladies come to his house. I mean, even the lady who called him, she was like, "Yeah, you never show me your apartment." Like I wouldn't if I were a woman and I went home with a man and he had a big metal coffin full of water in his bedroom, I would probably leave immediately.
All the pills in his pantry. She's like, "Oh God, this guy's bad news."
Real bad news.
The apparently the voice of the woman leaving the message on Matt's machine is Colin Farrell's sister, Claudine Farrell.
Nice.
That is a vocal cameo.
That is a fun fact. Definition of a fun fact, Steven.
Imagine Colin going up to Mark and is like, "Hey, my sister's in town for the weekend. She's got to come to set. Like, do you think we could throw her?"
Oh no, she's his personal assistant for this movie. So she's like on set with him. So it's probably one of those like, "Hey, you want a cameo in the movie? Like you're just hanging out. You want to do something?" It's probably one of those things. Yeah,
good for him.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. I love that Josie's bar is like the place where the first fight happens. That's like the place where that's the neighborhood hangout in Hell's Kitchen. But then they also have Joe's coffee shop, which I'm guessing is like the kind of like more gentrified Hell's Kitchen version of Josie's bar. That's the name of the coffee shop I saw in the window. I kind of wondered if that was maybe their like a little in joke to that or a reference to that.
I hope the bar's okay because he set those pool tables on fire and then walked through them like a badass.
Well, he's the devil.
Shit?
Fire doesn't hurt.
Did you see that shit? He walked right through that pile of pool tables, man. I tell you what.
Actually, if he's got a heightened sense of touch, that would probably not feel very good walking through fire like that.
Probably has some temperature, some sort of temperature resistant to his boots, maybe.
You want to know what would have been a very funny scene to put in this extended director's cut? A scene where Daredevil is pouring the gasoline in the double D when he's leaving the subway station. Like what?
And then Zepora shows up.
And he's booping it and like painting it and booping it.
There's just no sound, just him walking and the splashing of him pouring this gas.
Touching his watch to make sure he's not taking too much time. He's got his little touch watch that he has. Like, you think you'd have one that talks. Like, come on.
Yeah, I thought that was a funny detail. He flipped his watch
stupid.
open to like feel
That's
it.
stupid. but in a way that I love. There are things about this movie that are really stupid, but I love them. And I think it's like I was saying before, which Steve and I respect that you disagree with it, but I think this movie nails its tone.
There's the most New York moment from Daredevil is whenever he like beats that one guy's ass in the hallway, and there's the kid and his reaction, "I'm not the bad guy, kid." And the way he
Right?
said it was still just like so aggressive, even if
Right.
he's like trying to be nice. I'm like, yeah, I was like, that's pretty New York right there. Is was really funny. Um, a really fun detail I noticed during the fight between Daredevil and Kingpin. Every time Kingpin would land a blow, the thunder would crack because they're like, this guy is as strong as a thunderstorm, and he was like, so like every time he's like bashing him or throwing him, that's when like the thunder was clapping. I was like, all right, we're cooking a little bit here. We're kind of cooking, even if that fight is like very short. It's resolved pretty fast. I mean, that happens
Yeah.
when you get both your knees broken, which that injury has always killed me when I watch this.
That is the move in this movie that I have always remembered. Him sliding out and just doing that double kick right to the knees.
That's insane.
And the way Duncan reacts to that is just like bone chilling to me. Like I can feel like I get pain in my knees just watching him react to that because it's so visceral and real.
Well,
Like,
and
oh my God.
to bring a character that's that strong, that's why both Michael Clark Duncan and Vincent D'Onofrio are really great as the Kingpin, is because they exude just like strength, like an immovable rock. Like
They
they're
are
so
physically
big,
imposing presences.
very,
both.
very imposing. And for you to get a man that big and that strong to scream like that, you fucked him up. He's
Mhm.
fucked up. You
Mhm.
fucked him up.
You done fucked up real good.
You fucked him up.
I had a volleyball injury not too long ago, and I like hurt my knee pretty bad. It was essentially like my like knee, because I'm like double jointed, so it like buckled and like went like pushed back essentially, with like a
Nice.
bunch of downward force.
Oh.
It was one of the scariest injuries I ever had. I
Oh,
got
yeah.
so lucky that like I didn't like actually like tear anything or nothing, but I was fucked up for a bit, but like now I'm like terrified. Like every time I like go up and jump, I'm just like, because I never want to relive that knee pain again. So like yeah, so every time I watch this movie, that shot just like kills me. I'm just like, because then he gets kicked in backwards, but then he still has to fall to his knees forward. So that means they had to bend back the other way again. And fucking, oh my gosh, and his like him like, and he can't move. I love how he had to just like sit there on his knees until the police came and got him because his
he can't
fucking
do
knees
anything
are
else.
broken.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Insane. Oh my God. Yeah, that's such a brutal takedown. Like that's probably one of the moments in this movie that is just indelibly just in my brain and will never leave. Like just that part, the end of that fight is so fucking brutal. Oh, I love it.
Dude, yeah.
That's cool.
You guys, this is a good ass movie. The director's
It's
cut.
fun.
This
It's
is real
fun.
good. Real good.
It's fun.
Can I just bring up? I had a list of notes here, and I organically covered every note, but there's one that hasn't come up yet, and I just want to mention how many times the company with the chemical waste that got into Matt's eyes. Did they get OSHA training at all? Like,
No.
I realize that he's running through their workspace, but even without a child running through there are so many things,
I don't know.
so many precautions
I'm
that
putting
should
that
have
on
been
Matt.
taken.
I'm putting that on Matt. He's old enough. There was a comical amount of fucking these waste barrels around.
Right.
Like, kid, you don't need to take that shortcut, okay? Like, no, fuck off. Like,
That
no, I
also
think that's a
reminds
dummy.
me, his dad is Rocky with a kid in this.
Yeah.
Because he's a washed up boxer who works for a loan shark and beats up people.
Yep.
He's a Shylock. That's what that word means, right? Like John Travolta and the what you call it?
No, Shylock, I think
Is what he's an enforcer.
that's
There you go.
Yeah.
But isn't that what John Travolta is in Get Shorty, though? Don't they call him a Shylock? He's sort of that, though, right? Isn't he? Look up
No,
what that is, Steven.
I feel like Shylock as slang is has something to do with more a ruthless moneylender or a loan shark. That is what a Shylock is.
Yeah, well, there you go. Oh, if you would like to record this as well, I was right and you were wrong. And cut.
True.
There you go.
I was gonna say I've mostly heard it in conjunction with lawyers. So
Wow, you got two of them this episode, Steven. Like,
no, I'm thinking shyster is what I'm thinking of.
There you go.
That's what I would. That's where that was. Yeah. Anyway. Any other thoughts on Daredevil before we move into the box office?
There's a scene when Bullseye beats Elektra up with his jacket that I find very funny. His
rattlesnake jacket.
It's really important to him. It's his symbol of individuality and belief in personal freedom. Truly, I bet Bullseye loves Wild at Heart.
I
loves
have
that
to
movie.
imagine, yes.
But he beats Elektra up with his jacket, and I think that's a very funny, just like only in a comic book movie, you know.
Yep.
This was the when leather outfits were on, they're kind of on their way out. So this movie itself is a last gasp for leather costumes. Before they get hung up for a while, but yeah. they really tried in this. Shout out Jennifer Garner that she knows how to do all that size stuff herself. She got to whip the skills back out for Deadpool and Wolverine. She was like posting videos on Instagram of her doing her Psy thing, so that's awesome. Fun. Apparently she had a background as a dancer, according to Fact or Fiction, which helped her with the Psy training.
That could be fiction, though. We don't know. There's no indication. It is called fact or fiction, so some of them theoretically have to be fiction. So that could be a lie. That could be a GD lie, dude.
Damn, maybe it could be.
I'm just saying.
He doesn't look like a dancer now that I think about it. I don't know.
Maybe that's the whole like the whole thing about fact or fiction is that you don't know. You have to decide for yourself. Is this real trivia or is this some old bullshit?
She did perform in summer stock theater, so there's a very good chance she has at least some dance training. Because
what do we think of
us? What do we think of? Do dance from time to time.
What do we think of the others? And are we good? We're good. We're ready. Am I clear? Am I clear to go? Am I ready for takeoff? Okay. All right. So what do we think about you piece of shit? I'll punch you square in the dick, Steven. What do we think about the Kevin Smith cameo, which was the style at the time?
Right.
How does this compare to his other cameos, like TMNT or
he's like
Live Free or Die Hard?
He's like aggressively chewing gum, and I hate it.
Yeah.
But they also do it's a double because he's cameoing himself, but the character's name was Attendant Kirby.
Jack Kirby, named after the great Jack Kirby. No, I like Kevin Smith. I feel like his cameo kind of grinds the movie to a halt a little bit. Like we're trucking along, we're going. Oh, we got to stop. Kevin Smith's got to do a cameo.
Stuff. I like the Uric stuff. Honestly, I wish there was a little more Uric stuff.
But the Kevin Smith cameo is just kind of this like moment where everything stops so we can have a Kevin Smith cameo. Like, I think if that had just been like a random that guy actor, it probably wouldn't have taken me out as much as it did. But because this is 2003 and it's Kevin Smith,
he was in his prime there as far as his popularity.
Right.
For film, at least.
Yes. And it kind of, and I mean, he had already written one of, I think, the great Daredevil stories, just like one of the canonically great Daredevil stories in the Guardian Devil is so fucking good. But like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like his cameo is a bit out of place. It's
like a pause for fans to go, "Oh shit, it's Kevin Smith!"
It's our guy. Well, that was our nerd. That was our nerd representation back in the day. He was the guy who was in with the cool people, but he was one of us nerds. You know, that was his whole appeal. I feel like in those days.
And then he kind of fell out of fashion, and we got Patton Oswalt instead.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with both of them.
He's all right.
I don't find myself enjoying Kevin Smith's output as much as I used to, but I still respect the man quite a bit.
Yeah, Clerks 3 made me cry.
Respect there. Yeah, well.
Where's Moose Jaws? Where's that at, Kevin?
Right?
It's never gonna happen, unfortunately.
Here's the thing, like, does Yoga Hosers need a sequel? Do we need to even acknowledge that exists?
No, but we need Moose Jaws though, so yes.
I did like Tusk though. I do like Tusk.
Tusk is crazy.
I did not like Tusk at all.
Michael Parks, you can't like. It's 90% Michael Parks monologues. Like, how you can't go wrong with that.
The thing that ruined Tusk for me is that he put the like drug-addled rant that inspired the movie over the end credits, and it took me. It's like everything that you had like actually like built as pathos.
Yeah, I thought it was a neat
lost
thing
it there, but yeah.
Well, I think if you hadn't, I don't know, Steven, I remember that episode of Smodcast when it came out. Like I remember listening to that. And so for
Tusk
me,
yes, hashtag Tusk no.
So for me, it didn't really take me out of it because I was familiar with it.
And I was not.
Oh, that's too bad. That was a good show back in those days. That was in the early podcasting days. That was the place to be.
He's one of the forebears of podcasting.
One of the guys.
One of our podcast forefathers.
Yeah. He started this podcast shit. This is the motherfucking thanks he gets.
Daredevil.
No, we're not Ice Cube fans. Okay.
Out in theaters on. It is February 14th, a Valentine's Day movie. February 14th, 2003.
Hey, that was a couple weeks ago, you guys.
That was. And we talked about another superhero movie with our good buddy Mike Snoonian. Captain America from 1990.
That was a good one too. Have you seen that, DeVaughn? Have you seen that 1990 Captain America?
I have not.
You should check that shit out. I think you'd like it.
It's
I had no idea. I had no indication that I was going to like it as much as I did. So I don't want to hype it up because, like, for me, maybe some of it was because I had no expectations. But you should check it out. It's on YouTube.
It's fun.
Anyway, Steven.
Yeah. Daredevil opens at number 1 at the box office to 40.3 million, on its way to 102.5 million domestic on a budget of 80 million. So not terrible.
No.
Not quite what you want from one of these tentpole blockbusters, but still not bad.
They made some money. They didn't just break even. They made some money, but like
a little bit.
Didn't do gangbusters.
No,
there's definitely gonna be a rom-com that outgrows them, which makes it kind of funny though.
Right. They do. There is another 80 million international for a total of 182.7 or 0.8 million worldwide. So not
do you
too
guys
shabby.
Do you guys think that if the director's cut was released instead of what we got as a theatrical cut, that it would have done better or the same?
I don't think it would have mattered. I think honestly, I think it was just again, like this movie kind of had a lot of expectations and like kind of big shoes to fill. So, I think it was already going to kind of have its issues. I mean, I don't know, maybe it could have helped the word of mouth and it could have done a little bit better, but I think they were also they were very much hoping, to do a Daredevil sequel, so it's like, I think they were kind of also still kind of thinking like, oh, it's okay if this first one doesn't make, super huge money. We just need it to make enough money to then get the sequel. And then, the franchise is where, you get the money. So, but that didn't happen, unfortunately.
Speaking of rom-coms that outgrossed it, We have in second place, down from number one in its second weekend, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, which has earned $49.4 million in 2 weeks,
Hey,
on its way to 105.8 domestic. So
that's
definitely
that
outgrossed
Matthew
the
McConaughey,
domestic.
Kate Hudson movie, isn't it?
Sure as heck is.
Huh. Really?
In third place, last year's Oscar winner, Chicago, at $82.6 million. I guess
I
gearing
like
up
that
for
Richard
its
Gere
Oscar
guy, you
win.
guys.
Yeah?
He's good and stuff, yeah. I like
I'm
him in
pretty sure
Officer and
that-
Gentleman.
That's crazy because
Primal
I'm pretty
Fear.
sure Chicago was a Christmas movie, Christmas release, I think. So I had some legs. That's crazy.
It's been out for 8
Yeah.
weeks. Yeah.
That's
Jeez
wild.
Louise. It
Another
was a big deal. People fucking love that movie.
another new movie opening this week, The Jungle Book 2, from the Walt Disney Company, opening at $11.4 million. That was when Disney was making sequels to all their like legacy movies.
I don't remember that.
And that's the
Haley
last
Joel
we ever heard
Osment
of it.
as Mowgli, and
Did this
John
actually
Goodman
You
happen?
as
made this
Baloo.
up.
Bernstein Bears right now.
He's making this
No,
up.
Because
This
I
is
don't
not
have any
real.
recollection of a Jungle Book 2.
No, Steven's
May
bullshitting
Whitman
us.
as Shanti,
Fact
Jim
fiction.
Cummings as Colonel
No.
Hathi. I'm Tony
This is
J
fiction.
as Shere
Yeah.
Khan. I'm just
For
just
sure.
saying, guys.
Fiction. I call fiction on this one.
Yep.
Factor fiction.
Agreed.
It's fiction.
I got you, and that's 2 against 1, so it doesn't exist. It's not real. We outvoted
And
you.
in
We
fifth
outvoted
place,
reality.
the sequel to Shanghai, just gonna keep right on going. The sequel to Shanghai Noon, Shanghai Nights.
Oh, where they're different characters, but they're the same because it's in a different time period in a different location.
Correct.
Nice.
And they meet young Charlie Chaplin.
Strange.
yeah.
What were they
And-
trying to do with those movies?
I don't know.
They were like, let's do another kind of Rush Hour type
They were
thing.
doing
Yes, that was it.
But let's replace
Vanilla
the black guy with the
Rush
white guy
Hour.
instead.
Yeah, Vanilla Rush Hour. That's what you got.
Yeah. Like yeah, exactly. In sixth place, The Recruit.
It
Seven.
makes sense though, because like there are few actors that are so completely opposite than Chris Tucker and Owen Wilson. Can you imagine those two motherfuckers being in like a buddy movie? I would pay a lot of money to see that just because.
I'd watch it.
Wow. No, I'm
We
sorry.
got
Not
Eddie,
wow.
we got Eddie
Wow.
Murphy and Owen Wilson together in I Spy.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
It's close.
We did. But I mean, Eddie Murphy is fantastic, but he's not Chris Tucker, and that doesn't mean he's a better or a worse actor than Chris Tucker. Chris Tucker's just so very unique.
Oh yeah, no.
There's
for
nobody
sure.
like him. Like nobody does it like he does it. So those two together.
They
Owen
could have
Wilson,
put Chris Tucker in there, but I think Eddie Murphy was a bigger name, bigger draw.
Yo, they should have done the with Shanghai Nights and Shanghai Noon, they should have done what they did with Danny Glover and Maverick. They bring in Chris Tucker for like a little comes in for a little cameo, and then he says, don't nobody understand the words that are coming out of your mouth. Or something, like something from the movie. Because remember how Danny Glover's like, I'm too old for this shit. But he's a bank robber. He's not Riggs and Murtaugh. You guys get what I'm saying, right? How that would be funny. Like, you get that, right? Okay,
in sixth place, we've got The Recruit. Seventh place, Final Destination 2. Eighth place,
I like that one.
Deliver Us from Eva. Seventh place, or ninth place rather, Kangaroo Jack. And in 10th place, The Hours, another eventual Oscar player. And all the way down at number 24, 44 weeks, finally winding down its box office run. Speaking of another rom-com that outgrossed this shit. 44 weeks in the box office, $240.7 million earned so far domestic. My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
We can't cover that movie because they made sequels.
They did.
Those sequels.
Mm-hmm.
And all three films have Joey Fatone in them, so I unfortunately had to watch them.
That movie, no, DeVaughn, that movie is an insane multiplier. Like that movie was like that's almost a year in theaters. Like that thing had crazy.
I remember it was huge in the news.
Stay in the theater for 2 weeks now.
No,
it was huge in the news because it was an independent film. Like My Big Fat Greek Wedding is not a studio movie. It was an independent
IFC
film.
Films. Literally,
and for it to make that much money, like people were losing their fucking minds.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when this came out. Yeah.
Starring my pick for Elektra, Nia Vardalos. So there you go.
And again, Joey Fatone. Let's not.
And Joey Fatone, my pick for Elektra.
Hey, yeah, I'd watch that.
The tomatometer score for this one is a 43%, the critics' consensus.
What?
While Ben Affleck fits the role and the
yeah.
story is sporadically interesting, Daredevil is ultimately a dull, brooding origin story that fails to bring anything new to the genre.
I disagree, but fair.
At the time,
we're also, remember, that's the theatrical
many of
cut.
those. We hadn't even had that many of those yet. Like, so like...
And it's not an origin story because, like, we get a flashback to his origin, but, like, you don't even really know how long he's been Daredevilin. And I feel like he's been doing it for a while.
By the scars on his back, he's been in it for a bit.
So it's not, and I'm sorry, the first 15 minutes is an origin story, but fuck you, critics' consensus. Not an origin story.
Speaking of critics' consensus, the Metascore on this one is a 42, based on mixed or average reviews from 35 critics. And Tucker, care to take a stab at the Letterboxd score?
It's in between a 2.4 and a 2.8.
DeVaughn, you care to take a guess?
I'm gonna say
it's a 4-point spread.
I think people are gonna be mean to this one. I'm gonna say 2.3.
We got it at a 2.1. You both overshot.
Damn, yeah, I knew it.
Really?
Like, people are fucking mean to this movie.
No, look, they're mean. But have you ever been on Letterboxd? It's all about the memes. It's not about actually reviewing movies. It's about who can be the biggest dipshit and make something silly. So that's how I kind of.
Yeah, but I bet you there's a 1-star review that somebody wrote like 5 paragraphs about. Like, people are stop it, watch more movies.
Exactly. That's why when people say something like, when they're like, "Oh, this movie was the worst movie ever made," I'm like, you haven't seen very many movies, have you?
You clearly haven't seen Food Fight.
You have not seen a lot of movies, because if you think that is bad, boy, I got some shit for you. Boy, do I ever. Ever expanding trash can.
So, DeVaughn, out of 5 stars, how are you rating the theatrical and director's cuts of 2003's Daredevil?
I mean, I guess I wouldn't say it's like a marginal difference, because I still would say they're both still positive for me. So I'd say theatrical a 3.0, director's cut 3.5. But it's like if I could give in between, because it's kind of like in between a 3.5 and a 4. Like, it's definitely not a 4, right? But I want to kind of give it more than a 3.5, so it's like in between there, a 3.75, I guess. But
yeah, we do quarter values, so you can do 3.75.
There we go, 3.75 out of 5 for me. And then I'll say the theatrical cut an even 3.0.
Okay. Tucker, theatrical and director's cut, please.
For me, the theatrical is a 2.5, and the director's cut is a 3.5.
I also have a 1-point spread between the two. I give the theatrical cut a 2, and I give the director's cut a 3.
That's fair.
So there you go.
No.
These are all valid. These are all fair.
Absolutely.
I can see both of your guys' reasoning for sure. I mean, I'm impressed for Tucker though, going from a 2.5 to a 3.5. That's a significantly different movie, and I respect that.
It truly is, and I'll tell you, it's just that it's not that the theatrical cut is bad. It's just that the director's cut is so much better.
It's a little stiff.
So
the theatrical
much better.
cut's a little stiff.
Yeah.
And like they really focus on the love story. Like, the theatrical cut, all it wants to do is love story shit, basically, when it can get away with it. They even add a sex scene, which doesn't add anything. In fact, the way that scene ends in the director's cut is so much better and makes so much more emotional sense. Like,
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. I was like, wait a sec. Yeah, I was watching. I was like, wait, did I
it
imagine
makes
them in
no
bed together?
sense
I
that
was
they
like,
fuck
wait.
after that. It makes no sense
Mm-mm.
at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just so egregious. And like, if there's one thing I hate, is an unnecessary sex scene. I'm no prude, but when it's just there to be titillating, like,
Get
fuck
the
off.
teenage boys in the theaters.
Look, man,
I mean, hey, if they're
maybe
putting it out on Valentine's Day, they gotta,
Mhm.
like the guys that are dragging their girlfriends to go see it. Yeah, give them a little shirtless Ben. Give them a little something
Absolutely.
something.
sure, but the sex scene, it's just,
Fingering each other's scars and
yeah.
Oh yeah, they do that. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, just like that's funny.
like entwined and like making out
That
with each other's
kills the
elbows and
tone.
shit. Yeah.
That's a tone killer right there. It doesn't make any sense in that fucking movie. Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
DeVaughn, thanks for coming on. This has been a lot of fun. It's always fun when you're on, but thanks so much. We
Dude,
appreciate
yeah.
you hanging out with us for a little bit.
Thank you for having me. We still got more in my niche disenfranchised corner. As far as some of these other early aughts, early 2010s kind of alternatives. Because you guys didn't do because I know you still haven't done Jumper. I know that one still got my name on it.
Yep, we still got you on
So
board
at
for
some
Jumper.
point, did you guys ever do Chronicle? I can't remember. If
We
you've done
haven't done Chronicle yet either. No.
That's also mine too. Then there we go.
Yeah,
That's
there you go.
those are the next ones in this series.
The
To like
quintilogy.
kind of yeah. Well, because I keep doing these ones, and then you got Ari for the early aughts slasher stuff. So you got her for that corner, So
Absolutely.
we got our own little places to play in. But yeah, thank you so much. This was super fun to revisit. Everybody can find me at all the social media places at _DaddyDisco. You can hear Spectre Cinema Club every Tuesday. Breaking down subgenres in horror. March, we're celebrating David Cronenberg, the month of his birth. So we're gonna be doing all Cronenberg for March.
Hell
It's gonna be
yes.
a super great time. And then
Hell
you can hear my new podcast, Tainted Love, every other Wednesday with Zoe Rose Smith, and we cover horror movies about sex, romance, dating, relationships, things like that. So we are coming off an episode on Excision, and then we have a episode on Wild at Heart, which I mentioned a little bit ago. Got that on the horizon, as well as Interview with the Vampire later in March as well. So we got some good stuff over there. So check us out at Tainted Love Pod, and listen to me and Chewy over on Pod and Pendulum. My light defense of The Exorcist 2: The Heretic. The only one that gave it a couple compliments.
Right.
No,
maybe it's not so bad.
No, we were actually.
Maybe.
I think we were pretty just on it. Justice was served, indeed.
Correct.
For
Yes.
that movie. So yeah, but thanks, guys.
You're not the bad guy.
You're not the bad guy.
I'm not the bad guy. At the end, when he says it to himself again, and he like snickers.
Yeah.
And Kingpin's like, what?
Is this an inside joke from earlier in the movie that I wasn't on screen for? Because that's a really random thing to say knowingly.
Oh
boy. We have been the Disenfranchised Podcast. This is the end of our first of 3 consecutive theme months. So we are just coming off of American Superheroes. Next month, join us for an all video game theme month where Brett has handpicked 4 different video game adaptations that did not get sequels for us to cover on this very podcast. Join us next month for that. And in the meantime, you can find us on Blue Sky, YouTube, and Letterboxd at DisenfranchPod. You can find us wherever you get your social media. Make sure you leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you do that. Shoot us an email, disenfranchpod@gmail.com. And what else? Oh yeah, join the official conversation of the Disenfranchised Podcast over at patreon.com/disenfranchpod. You can sign up for absolutely free and get main feed episodes and comment on those. Tucker and I do comment back. Brett, not so much, but we do. You can also join at the $5 level and get access to dozens of hours of behind the scenes content, including episodes of What Are We Watching, as well as episodes of Disenfranchised Pod, Oops All Video Game Corner, Oops All Christianity Corner, Unenfranchised. We've got it all over there. Got a couple of movie commentaries, just shit you may want to hear us do. I don't know. Tell us if you like it. $5 a month over there at patreon.com/disenfranchised. I'm your host, Stephen Foxworthy. You can find me on Blue Sky and Letterboxd at Chewy Walrus.
Now, Stephen,
yes,
I have to interrupt you because one, I need my quota of post plugs after show. We have to meet that. But one very important note. Wake me up!
Wake me up inside!
I can't wake up!
Wake me up inside!
Save me!
My name and save me from the dark.
Shout out Hoobastank on the soundtrack. Shout out Seether, Nickelback,
Dude.
Evanescence twice. Chevelle.
This is the most 2003 soundtrack. Can
Crazy
I just say,
soundtrack.
As someone who was at a Christian college when this movie came out, Bring Me to Life was fucking everywhere on our campus because everybody at our school thought it was a Christian song until one of the guys in the band was reported as saying, and I quote, "What the fuck are we doing on Christian charts?" And then nobody listened to them anymore. Everyone thought it was about Jesus, and it turned out it was not about Jesus at all.
No, it's about fucking. I'm pretty sure.
Probably about fucking. My partner and I were laughing about that earlier today after she sat through me watching the theatrical or the director's cut after last night, sitting through me watching the theatrical cut. She's like, "Why do you have to watch this crappy movie twice with this crappy music in it?" And I'm like, I don't know. That's just. She's like, "This is the. I mean, I like some of this, but not all the stuff in this movie is the stuff I hated in high school." And I was like, "That's fair."
It's all a part of the charm. The introduction to adult Matt Murdock is Right Before Your Eyes by Hoobastank.
Yep.
Right Before Your Eyes, the blind guy.
And right before my eyes is my co-host Tucker. Tucker, where can we find you on socials these days?
Hey, that's me, Tucker, and you can find me on YouTube at Ice909. That's ICENINE, the number 0 and the number 9. You can technically still find me on Instagram under that name as well, but I'm probably not gonna do that anymore. Tuck Mugs is still on Instagram, Tuck_Mugs. We are behind the scenes. Pardon our dust, because we're straight up moving Tuck Mugs somewhere. We don't know where yet.
Not sure where yet,
but it's going somewhere. So keep an eye out for news on that. All my Tuck Mugs fans. What would a Tuck Mug fan be? A Tuck Mugger?
There you go.
Like they're gonna rob me of my mugs and stuff? Yeah, I'm
maybe
into that. Yeah,
it's reverse mugging. They give you mugs,
but it'd still be mugging because it's a mug. They're mugging me.
Yes,
mugs. Very cool. Yeah. So not so much on the socials, unfortunately, because I hear that if you're trying to entertain people or, whatever we're doing here, it's best to know a lot of people electronically. In fact, I just read an article this week where Ethan Hawke's daughter, what's her name? Maya. Maya Hawke was like, yeah, if you don't straight up have a whole bunch of Instagram followers, you're not going to get all the good jobs. And Ethan Hawke was like, no way. But then he was going to read for a movie or something, and some producer was talking about how somebody was picked specifically because they had more followers than the other person when it came down to choosing who would get a role. And I just think social media is the devil. I think
the thinking is that if you have more followers, all your followers will show up to your movie. That's the thinking.
Sure.
People with a built-in fan base, that fan base will show up.
That's how it works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Round up everybody's social media of the whole cast, and then take the followers and let's see if it matches up with the box office numbers. just to see if this theory is true. One follower equals $1. Well, I guess $10. Yeah, one ticket.
I don't understand
Probably
that though,
not.
because like I don't know. I don't like, it's two different things. Like I don't want to see my favorite YouTubers in movies, like for any reason. Even if they were good actors, it would be weird because it's kind of like what happened with me when it comes to Kevin Smith after Smodcast. I knew him too well. After that. So every one of his movies, I'm like, oh, he's referencing that thing that happened to him. Oh, that's the thing that happened to him, maybe from when he said that on the podcast. Oh, I know where he got that. I can't enjoy him anymore because I'm too insider on that shit. And that's with social media and stuff, like I know these people too well. When I see them up on the screen, it's not as believable. So please, if you have a whole bunch of followers, don't be in movies. I want some motherfuckers I don't know.
It's a great point. I can get on board with that.
Yeah. It's frustrating because, man, I hate the internet.
It sucks.
And it's frustrating because the internet's every part of my life. It just revolves around the internet.
And yet, I don't know that the three of us would be hanging out without the internet. So, God bless the internet.
The internet was a mistake. I love you guys, but the internet was a mistake.
A necessary devil. Just like our boy Matt Murdock, a necessary devil.
That's it. And that is it for our episode on 2003's Daredevil. Join us next week for some video game adaptation. DeVaughn, once again, thank you so much for being here. It's always a thrill. Thank you.
I will exit with my snake rattle jacket.
And that is the show. I have been your host, Stephen Foxworthy, from my co-host Tucker, the absent Brett Wright, and the great DeVaughn Taylor. Until next time, I want a fucking costume.